Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 5 things you need to do if you want your aquarium plants to survive in your aquarium. So I'm not going to lie, keeping aquarium plants can be a little bit difficult. I used to struggle with it a lot back when I, began keeping them. And these 5 tips are pretty much must-haves or must-dos, I guess, in your aquarium if you do want to keep your aquarium plants thriving. So yeah, I guess without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first tip on our list. As for tip number 1 today, we have a pretty obvious one, and that's going to be making sure you have appropriate lighting. So figuring out what light duration or what light intensity is best for your aquarium does take a little bit of time, and you will just have to experiment to see which sort of lighting duration or light intensity works best for you. What works best for me is a light duration anywhere about 8 to 10 hours. So this light behind me here is set up for an 8-hour light cycle, and I find it works well for me. But it really does depend on your aquarium, the quality of your light, the intensity of your light, all that. So for example, a deeper tank may need a higher light intensity and a longer light cycle, whereas a more shallow tank would need a lower light intensity and a shorter light cycle. Or if you had, say, a less intense light, you'd need a longer light cycle, or a more intense light, maybe a shorter light cycle. So yeah, like I said, it can be a little bit confusing, and it definitely does take a little bit of experimenting. But the main 2 things you want to focus on when you are setting up your lighting duration is making sure that your plants are getting enough light throughout the day. But you also want to make sure your light's not on for too long, just because if you have a really long light duration, that's when you tend to get outbreaks in algae, and algae can affect your aquarium plants as well. So algae obviously uses the same resources the plants do, which means it sort of competes with the plants. And that just means your aquarium plants aren't going to do as well in your aquarium. And another thing algae can actually do is it can actually smother your aquarium plants, which can be super damaging for the plant. It can block out all the light that gets to them, and it can just pretty much kill them. So yeah, making sure you're providing adequate lighting with an appropriate light cycle and duration is definitely one thing you need to do if you want to keep your aquarium plants thriving. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's making sure your aquarium plants are getting enough nutrients. So nutrients is formed naturally in your aquarium from things like fish waste, decaying organic matter, decaying fish food, all that sort of stuff. And for most planted aquariums with just a few plants like these ones behind me here, that level of nutrients is enough. You don't need to add any extra nutrients in your aquarium whatsoever. All your plants should thrive off that natural nutrients. But in some more heavily planted aquariums or aquariums with more demanding aquarium plants, you may need to introduce some nutrients yourself into your aquarium. So you can get all sorts of aquarium plant fertilizers from, like fish shops or aquarium stores. You can also get certain substrates that provide nutrients for your aquarium plants as well. But in my opinion, you don't really need to use any of those sorts of substrates unless you're going for like a full planted style aquarium. Usually I just use, sand or gravel. And if I notice that my aquarium plants do look like they need more nutrients, then I just add in a little bit of fertilizer or root tabs. And that should help just supplement the level of nutrients in your aquarium. Much like the lighting, with this one, you do also want to make sure you aren't providing too many nutrients, just because obviously algae does like those nutrients as well. And if you have too much nutrients in your aquarium, that algae can outbreak and smother your aquarium plants, which can kill them. So yeah, again with this one, you want to make sure you're providing just enough nutrients for your aquarium plants to grow. But yeah, with that being said, making sure you have an appropriate level of nutrients in your aquarium is another thing you need to do if you want to be keeping your aquarium plants alive. As for the next thing you're going to want to have to make sure your aquarium plants stay alive, it's going to be flow. So flow is super important to have in your aquarium. Obviously it helps keep your substrate clean, it helps keep your whole water column clean in general. And one of the main things it actually does that's very beneficial for your aquarium plants is it helps evenly distribute nutrients throughout your aquarium. So this one is definitely important if you have a heavily planted aquarium, just because sometimes certain plants get more nutrients than others. So having a good amount of flow that sort of blows over all of your aquarium plants is definitely very beneficial. It helps all of them get an even amount of nutrients, which does obviously help them grow. And without a gentle flow pushing the nutrients around, some of your aquarium plants can suffer. Just like I said, some will do better and they'll just outcompete the ones that aren't getting enough nutrients. And that's how some of your aquarium plants can actually die. So as for ways you could add flow, you could just add a little bit more surface agitation. That tends to add a little bit of flow in your aquarium. Or you could obviously use like a power head filter or even a wave maker. But generally, you don't want very fast flow, you just want a soft flow that's just enough to circulate the water around your aquarium. But yeah, with that being said, making sure you're using flow in your aquarium is another thing you need to do if you want to keep your aquarium plants alive. Moving on to the next tip on our list. This one is a pretty obvious one, and that's making sure you're keeping your plants with compatible tank mates. So there is a few species of aquarium fish out there that will eat plants, and obviously you're going to want to steer clear from these fish. Even if your fish aren't actually eating your aquarium plants, they can sometimes just nip at them, and if they're nipping at them constantly, that can just, kill your aquarium plants. So yeah, with that being said, making sure you're keeping your aquarium plants with compatible fish is definitely another super important thing you need to do. And then as for the final thing you need to do if you want to keep your aquarium plants alive in your aquarium, it's making sure you have good water quality. So good water quality is essential for growing aquarium plants, and there's two main times you really need good water quality. Number one, if you trim your aquarium plants. So if your aquarium plants are in bad water quality and you trim them, they have like that open wound, I guess. And because of that, in the bad water quality, it can mean they're more susceptible for diseases, bacterial infections, fungal infections, all that sort of stuff, and that can just lead to them dying. And another time you want to make sure you have good water quality is when you first plant them in your aquarium. So if you plant them in your aquarium in bad water quality, it's very hard for them to actually root into your substrate and grow a good healthy root system when they're not in healthy water. So yeah, making sure you have good water quality in your aquarium is another essential thing when it comes to keeping your aquarium plants alive. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I've got all sorts of fish, botanicals, and other aquarium products up there. But yeah, with that being said, thank you all so much for sticking around to the end. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in that next video.